Thank you for coming today, and welcome to day 2 of the Conference for Creative Content at the Los Angeles Asian Pacific Film Festival. Mouthful. I'm Milton Liu, the Director of Programs and Artist Services at Visual Communications, and we thank you for joining us. We're tremendously honored to have such a prestigious gathering of people today and throughout C3. This year's theme is Future Forward. As you may know, the goal of C3 is to have a dialogue regarding the future of the ever-changing landscape in media. Whether it's film, television, cable, digital, animation, gaming, transmedia, it's our goal to communicate, collaborate, and celebrate with each other. I do want to mention that we will be continuing C3 tomorrow, Monday, at the Korean Cultural Center in Mid-Wilshire. And there also will be a reception at the conclusion of today's conference in the courtyard of the Union Center for the Arts, right across from here, beginning at 5 p.m. So it's right over there. Lastly, some house rules. Please, no recording of this panel. You can take non-flash photos, and we encourage you to share on your social media. At the conclusion of each panel, there will be a 15-minute break. Please take all conversations out into the lobby so that we can set up for the following panel. All that out of the way, I'm honored to present our first panel, which is BuzzFeed, Impact and Visibility on the Digital Frontier and Beyond, moderated by VC board member Hieu.
Ooh. All right. How's everyone doing?
Hi.
Hello. Thank you, Milton. Thank you, everyone, for coming out on a Sunday afternoon. Appreciate that. For those of you who do not know what BuzzFeed is, I mean, if you've never been on the internet, it's possible. I respect that analog life. BuzzFeed started 10 years ago and was founded by Jonah Peretti. We began by curating articles and have evolved to produce our own original content from those tests and quizzes and listicles that we've all seen, to in-depth investigative news reporting, to the tasty videos on Facebook, to our division, BuzzFeed Motion Pictures, that creates original short-form videos and series. We produce 700 pieces of content every single day, including 75 original videos a week. That's with 200 million unique visitors a month that go to BuzzFeed.com, and that's over 7 billion views around the world every month, in large part to my colleagues that are sitting on the stage right now and the work they do. I know you guys have our bios in the program, but I just want to sort of do some quick intros, maybe go down the line, and if we can say your name, where you grew up, and how you got your start with BuzzFeed. Stephen?
All right. Hi, my name is Stephen. I am from Cincinnati, Ohio. Woo woo. Yeah. And how I got my start at BuzzFeed. So I actually made, before I got to BuzzFeed, I had my own YouTube channel. And on that channel, I made this video that was called Asian Parents React to I Love You. And so I gathered a few of my Asian friends. We called our parents, and we told them we loved them out of the blue. And it was like a very beautiful, awkward moment. So that's how BuzzFeed found me, and they reached out, and so that's why I'm here today.
Nice.
My mic is too high. I'll sit up. Yeah, so my name is Jen Ruggirello. I grew up in Glenview, Illinois, which is like 20 miles north of Chicago. And I got my start at BuzzFeed because I had been interning at various like production companies throughout LA. And I applied for an internship in December 2014. And then I started working there in January 2015. Yeah.
Hi, I'm Ryan Bergara. I grew up in Arcadia, California, which is actually pretty close to here. It's about 20 minutes away from here. And I was a director, cinematographer, freelance before this, and I just applied. I actually didn't even know what the site was at the time. My girlfriend told me about it, and and then everything went from there. I applied, went in for the interview, and now I'm here. And
Did you start as an intern?
I did start as an intern. I started as an intern in August 2014.
Cool.
But
Nice.
yeah, that's my story.
Yay.
Thank you, Ryan.
Oh man, the applause break is hard for me. I'm Ashley Perez. I am from San Diego, California, and I started at BuzzFeed 4 years ago, April 2013, as a writer in New York, as an editorial fellow.
And then,
Oh, and then I moved to LA, and they literally put me in videos because they needed actors, and someone came up to me and said, Ashley, you're loud. Do you want to be in a video?
You are loud, so
Yeah,
they
true.
weren't wrong.
I'll just clap because
Oh,
you
thank
didn't get a clap. You didn't get a clap.
Hi, I'm Eugene Liang. I'm originally from Central Texas, and I came to BuzzFeed walking past the office on the street and hearing my mother say, Eugene, you need a full-time job. So actually, I came onto the internship back in late 2013, and before that, I was just your regular old filmmaker. I was actually in VC's Armed with a Camera for a year. So yeah, I was a very serious filmmaker, and now I'm a serious filmmaker who gets naked on the internet.
Love it.
Yay, thank you.
So Eugene, we'll start off with you with the first question. Something I think a lot of people wonder about. What product do you use for your hair? Because you have such incredible volume.
I just wake up really early and find the nearest construction site and just dunk my head into the cement mix.
Nice.
Make a lot of friends that way. No, honestly, the trick is genetics. Hey. Just lots of hairspray. Like really, it's just hairspray. So it's just more of a sculpture than
Got it.
like free blowing. A lot of people are like, "Oh, you want to walk out and have like the wind waft through it?" I'm like, "Nah, I want the wind to just die right when it hits my head."
I've been to so many
to know.
conferences with Eugene where all the girls are like, does anyone have hairspray or a hair dryer? And Eugene like pulls out his gigantic bag. He's like, I got it, like a round brush.
Among many things, you're known as one part of the Try Guys. Can you tell us a bit about that show, and in particular, sort of your experience of how, from when it started to how it's sort of become today?
Yeah, so the Try Guys is probably the series I'm most associated with. It's myself and three of my best friends who all work at BuzzFeed doing a multitude of different sort of docu-comedy style explorations of culture and some really basic things like us trying on like weird men's swimsuits from Europe. This kind of came from the culture of iteration at BuzzFeed where you saw before we started, all of us were making different videos where people tried things, and there's literally a frame that was essentially guys try or girls try or people try blank. And when they decided to try Victoria's Secret underwear, the honest to God truth was that most guys like didn't want to do it because you forget that even though BuzzFeed is known for being quite, progressive, you still have an office full of guys who are just like, no, I don't want to put that on the internet. So I was one of 4 guys who was willing to do it. And the audience sort of reacted and kind of played as the casting director in that sense. And at the time, there was no like serialized cast in those unscripted videos on BuzzFeed. And the 4 of us just decided, hey, they really like it, and we just did it a few times. And within those few times, we made the Kim K recreation, which was more viral than the actual Kim K article, and then the drag video, which we kind of cite as like one of the first like true deep culture dives BuzzFeed video had ever done at the time. So yeah, we're kind of stuck with each other after that.
When did the name come?
It came during the Kim K one. We were just like, oh, we should be really clever. It's not guys try, it's try guys. It's really smart like that.
I was actually an intern on your Victoria's Secret
Oh, I'm so
video.
sorry.
And I was sorry too at the time. I
Yeah.
saw a lot more of you than I really intended
We
to.
say that there's a joke that you have to be an intern on a Try Guys video to fully like get the
Yeah, I was an
the
intern on a
brunt
Try
of
Guys
BuzzFeed.
video.
Oh wait, which one?
The BDSM one.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
So we both had a little
Okay.
adventure.
Yeah,
That
I
was
saw a
good
lot of all
times.
y'all.
All right, Ashley, you're next. You're gonna be the just
The
have
intern?
to hang out on. Well, you had to watch us wrestle naked, so that was
Oh,
probably,
that's true.
Yeah.
In this outfit, I watch you wrestle naked.
Anyway, that took a weird segue.
And how has the experience of doing the Try Guys evolved? Is it this? Are you finding and learning new things as the more the episodes that you guys do?
Yeah, I think it's interesting because if you compare it to, say, a more traditional approach to documentary filmmaking or to a serialized cast that you would have in a comedic sense, we kind of discovered everything organically, and a lot of it was determined by the sort of mass audience response. So we're not writing in Ned, who is one of my friends, being a married character, because the last thing you would think young kids would think was cool was a married guy. But then they started picking up on the fact that he just always had to disappear mid-shoot for his wife, and he always had to talk about his beautiful wife. And it became sort of this sort of part of this mythology that was being built by both the audience and us. But I think the other big thing that points to our learnings was that it was so organic that really anything that you could avoid in, I think, a more traditional scenario, no one would have ever thought the Asian guy out of a cast of 3 straight white dudes would be, I guess, like, I think an article cited me as like the Justin Timberlake of the group, which I'm super for, very okay with that. But normally we'd be shoved as like the Chris Kirkpatricks. No shade to Chris, but you know, he was the not cool one. But yeah, so that was totally done through the sort of vehicle we have at BuzzFeed on multiple platforms, being able to see what the audience is responding to, and being able to present our most authentic selves. And as we push, say, Try Guys and other types of properties potentially into other mediums, we know that that's like the primary thing that we need to retain, is that type of authentic ownership over what we're putting out, and really listening to what the public actually wants, as opposed to assuming what they're going to want. And that's the big difference.
Got it. Ashley,
Yes.
I know when we first met, you told me this amazing story about how your father came to America from Cuba.
Oh yeah, I'm part Cuban. Surprise!
Hell yeah. It reminded me a lot about sort of my own family's journey, and I think that's sort of one of the cool things about BuzzFeed, that there's so many different people from so many different walks of life. How has your own sort of personal experience and background informed your storytelling, not just in the videos, but in the scripted series that you do, whether it's You Do You or unfortunately Ashley, that have been hugely successful?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's no place like BuzzFeed where creators, it's like Eugene said, everything's kind of organic, and it's not really a top-down thing where there's like some exec who's like, hey, maybe we should make this because women seem popular right now, or this kind of story seems popular right now. So a lot of my stuff has been organic and multi-layered. So I started a channel with Ella Mielnyshenko and Andrew Gauthier called BuzzFeed Violet, and the original impetus for that was that we wanted female characters who were originally kind of side characters and always seemed to play the best friend to be at the forefront of that content. And a lot of that was because the side characters only got they only got one trait, basically. Like, for me, if I was the Asian girl, I'd be the Asian girl. I'd be, you know, if I was the Spanish or the Latin girl, that's who I would be. And if I was gay, I'd be that character. But, like, I'm all those things. And so BuzzFeed, I think part of our success, and mine personally, has been to the fact that I am all of those things, and I'm all those things in those characters. It's about 50-50, like, me as a real person and then me as a character. It was definitely closer to, like, 90-10 when we first started, but the older I get, the more we separate the characters, also because the character's a little bit younger than I am. But, yeah, I think it's a lot of what the audience has responded to is the naturalness and the reality of that. And there's still a lot that I haven't explored because I haven't really explored that like Latino side of me as much because I look Asian. So that's something that I hope to do in the future, is kind of show even more what it means to be multifaceted.
Cool. For those of you who know me, know that I'm fairly obsessed about food. So it's no surprise that one of my favorite shows online right now is Worth It, created by Stephen Lim. This is a show that is getting massive numbers. I'm talking about like 12 to 15 million views per episode. This is bigger than most TV shows on the air right now. Stephen, will you give us a little bit of background on Worth It and why you think so many people are connecting to this particular show?
Yeah. When you said food show, I was thinking you were going for Unsolved, which is our mystery show. But,
Naturally.
yeah. So, how did the show come about? Is that the question?
Or just, well, first, let us know, what is the show?
Okay.
And then how did it come about?
Yeah, so I do this food show. I got to BuzzFeed, and I actually came into BuzzFeed thinking I'm going to make a ton of Asian content and change the Asian American world and game and all that good stuff. 'Cause
Justin Lin.
I was watching like some of these guys make some amazing Asian American content. But I think the first video I ever saw at BuzzFeed was awkward moments Asians go through, which I believe Eugene made. And so I got here and I started making Asian American content, and it was hitting, but it wasn't sticking with our audience. And so I thought to myself, oh wait, what is this show? I'll get to that in a second. So I'm on some meds right now.
Steven's being a real trooper.
Back to the story though. So I wanted to make Asian American content, and I thought, well, my boss actually came to me and said, you should make some food videos. And I thought, that's stupid. I don't want to make food videos. I came here to make Asian content, and I'm going to stick to my guns here. But I just tried it, and then I realized that making food videos is awesome because all you have to do is show up and eat food and film it, and then that just began this journey. So, and then that became this show which I now host and created, which is called Worth It. And Worth It is a show where we try 3 foods of the same food at 3 drastically different price points, and we find out which one is the most worth it at its price. So, for example, we had an episode come out this morning, which was cocktails. So we tried a $6 happy hour cocktail and a $200 cocktail, which was a 30-year-old Scotch mixed in with lemon and ginger. It was amazing.
I've never been more jealous of you than that episode.
I know. But yeah, so that's what I do now, and
Well, why do you think this show is hitting so hard?
it's a great question. First of all, I think food. Everybody loves food, so there's that element. Especially Asian Americans love food. Asians love food. Everybody loves food. But it's an exploration into differences in culture and society, especially with the drastic price points. So we try like $1,000 cake, and so there's this like fantasy. If I had $1 million, what would I do with it? And we actually get to go out and live that fantasy and try like $2,000 pizzas and $2,500 souffle and cool stuff like that.
Awesome.
Hi.
I want to talk about 2014. There was a video online that I saw that was published that year of you from Boston Comedy Chicks, I believe. It was you doing a stand-up set. It was
Oh my God.
hilarious and really, really funny. Even back then, you were incorporating quite a bit of your identity into comedy and storytelling. Can you talk about your creative approach, and the work that you do in the closet and all the videos that you're doing with Layla at the moment?
Yeah, no, I definitely can. That
Did I throw you off
clip,
with that video?
Yeah, oh my gosh,
It was
no,
am-
that's
it's
like,
pretty
I'm gonna
amazing. You
watch
guys
that.
haven't seen it.
please
Did not
don't
know that
watch it.
existed.
It's like, I will say, so I'm just gonna like caveat for anyone that does watch it. There were jokes in there that I thought were funny that are not that funny. And then there's like 4 that are kind of funny. But no, yeah, so is the question about like just
Yeah, your creative approach in general.
I think like for me, like so I'm mixed and I am gay and I grew up and I just didn't want to be any of those things. I sort of tried to just like separate myself from anything that would make me seem like different or that I had an identity at all. Like when I was younger, I would sort of just be like not Asian, not just a white girl chilling, just hanging out in her house. And when I got older, I sort of started to realize that like exploring your identity like has a lot to do with like asking questions about like where your family is from and what's important to you, and the answers to those questions sort of shape like the values you have as an adult, which I think always inform your storytelling. So by the time I was like at BuzzFeed, it sort of became like I was super comfortable with knowing like who I was and what I cared about, and I sort of realized that when I was growing up there was like no media that I could really point to where I could be like, oh, that person makes me feel like it's okay to be me. So In the Closet specifically, which if you don't know, it's a vlog show that I made with my friend Nikki. That's just, we explore like LGBT topics and we talk about identity and we really try to like be upfront with our audience about who we are. That was a show that came from a place of us just being like, hey, like we wish that if we had been 14 and closeted and confused, we could go online and see people that look like us and have like similar journeys and are just talking about it. And even then, like, you know, when you sort of are making something that's so personal, even if like you have episodes where you do something super silly, like there was an episode where I just shaved my friend's head, it's sort of like the audience responds to that because even if you're not necessarily talking about something super personal that day, they know who you are and they know what you care about. And so just seeing you on screen and doing something pretty goofy can be kind of empowering. So that's sort of where we're at, I think.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
Do you find that it's because shaving the heads and doing all those kind of it makes you just more accessible, that there's a personal connection, and then it helps bridge these other conversations that are being had?
I really think so. I think especially too because a lot of the times if people like if young people do like reach out, like if they, you know, send me messages or if I even like meet people just on the street, I think it's partially because a lot of people feel like they don't have anyone that they can talk to about certain things, you know, and I think that's changing because thankfully, like, you know, we have places like BuzzFeed, and I think other people are becoming a lot more visible in media, but I think so much of it is like when you have someone who all of a sudden you had this thing that you could never talk about, right? Like growing up, you were like, I don't know who to talk to about my complicated feelings about who I am, you know, and it feels like such a huge, big thing, and then all of a sudden there might be someone who understand something that you've never been able to explain. So I think people, when they see stuff like that, or at least with our audience specifically, I think they feel like they know us a little bit and they can start asking questions or start talking to us on like a playing field as opposed to having to explain themselves and then trying to start the conversation.
Cool. Ryan,
Yes.
rarely do I laugh out loud from watching things, and you have a show called BuzzFeed Unsolved that is really funny. It's you guys take a reverent approach to true crime and supernatural. How did this idea come about? And can you just tell us a bit about the show?
Yeah, so BuzzFeed Unsolved is a show where, like you said, we explore supernatural and true crime topics. And really it's because I was always interested in those topics, but there was never really a show where people discussed those topics in a way that normal people do. It was always like some expert from Dateline going, and then this happened, and it was like, you know, there's the very violent graphics, and it's always very serious. Whereas most times when people talk about true crime, it's like, oh, who do you think did it? Oh, I think this guy did it, or I think this person did it over there with that, or, you know. And I think that's kind of what made it accessible to the audience, was that now there is these two guys who are very much not experts on any of the things that they're talking about, but they are talking about it, and they're engaging with the audience, and they're talking about it in a way that they could relate to. And I don't know, I think obviously it's a little morbid. There is some dark comedy aspects to it.
Yes.
I mean, you know,
What's been your favorite episode?
my favorite episode would be, oh boy. It's different because Supernatural and True Crime are two different seasons. Supernatural, we actually go out to the places and we investigate, hunt for ghosts, things like that. One episode we ended up hunting for Bigfoot. That was a lot of fun. True Crime, we just sit in a room basically and we discuss these crimes that happen in different places. So for Supernatural, I think favorite, those are always kill me because I'm very superstitious. I'm very scared of ghosts. I'm very squeamish when it comes to those sort of things, and I always almost lose my mind in any of these locations. So I would say my one where I was the most scared would probably be this place called the Sally House. It's a house that's supposedly infested with a demon, and I do not mess with demons. And here I was messing with demons. And it communicated with us in a way that made me very uncomfortable. I wanted to leave. But for the sake of the show, I stayed in the house, and I'm here today. So,
Nice.
thank God.
Demon infested, Ryan.
There is a demon. There is something in that house. I promise you that. If you've seen the episode, we use this flashlight to communicate with the demon. We ask it to turn it on and off if there's something here, and it did. And my mind exploded. It broke all sense of my reality. I started sweating. I felt like I was going to pass out. It's a good time. If you want to watch it and, you know, have something to debate about whether or not it was real, it was real. Then go ahead and watch that. For true crime, my favorite one we discussed was probably D.B. Cooper. I don't know if you guys know about that. It's a guy who is a famous bank heist, essentially, where this guy stole $100,000. He went into a plane. He asked them to give him a parachute, and he jumped out of the plane and was never seen from again. And they still don't know where he is. A lot of people think he's alive. Some people think... First hijacking, exactly, yeah. Some people think that he's around, just chilling as like an 80-year-old man. Some people think he died on impact from the fall. And it's just a super interesting story because the guy was a character in himself. And I don't know, I think that's probably my favorite mystery. It's the one that was the most fun to talk about.
Cool. You know, the online video world is really unique in the sense that you guys get immediate feedback. There's like a real-time conversation and engagement with the audience and the fans. How does that inform, and this is a question for everyone, how does it inform your storytelling? How does it inform like the way that you approach creating these videos and series?
I mean, I personally think having that immediate feedback is very interesting because unlike a TV show where you release like a full series, you don't really hear the feedback of the fans. By the time you hear feedback, you've already shot most of the, the season. So if, in our case, we could shoot a video, put it up online, and the next day we get comments and feedback of what they liked, what they want to see more of, and then we could use those comments to inform our next video. And I think that's super special, and that's probably why we're able to reach such a wide net of people, is because we are able to actually give them what they want. And I think that's really exciting, the interactive aspect of it.
Is it surprising sometimes what the audience is asking for?
Sometimes the comments aren't that helpful, like, Ryan's got a stupid voice, he's got a big head, things like that. I don't really know what to do with that, I can't shrink my head. But a lot of times it's like, oh, I really like this. I like what you said there. I liked what you did with this episode, or how you spoke about this certain thing. And okay, now I'll give you more of that, or I'll iterate off that further. And I think that's really exciting. And I don't know. I think it's kind of hopefully the way of the future.
Yeah, it kind of means that we're always testing something. Like, I think, so it's kind of 50-50. Like any creator, you want to make sure that your voice stays authentic and that you're not just pandering, because the second that the audience realizes that you're just trying to acquiesce them, you also lose your own authenticity. So like a lot of the comments, especially when I think we all first started, before you're your own brand and your own like known entity, people feel like they can comment on every part of you, like your head or your voice. People have commented on like the veins in my hand. My favorite comment that I've ever gotten was, if your neck was different, you'd be Beyonce. And I was like, wait, so all that's separating me from Beyonce is my neck? That's amazing.
Pretty good.
I know,
Awesome.
but it's like that kind of comment where you're like, I don't even know what to do with this. But then you'll also get hyper helpful comments that, like, we put out a video just a couple of weeks ago that was, what were you like in high school? And we really didn't know how it was going to be received. It did well, but then from there, it's not an automatic win of like, you don't really know what to do next. Is it the high school version that they liked? Was it the fact that it was a question? Was it seeing the younger versions of us? So you kind of get to choose. It opens up all these new paths of trying to decide what kind of content you're going to make next. But it isn't, it informs the creative process instead of dictating it, because you don't really know exactly what they liked about it. Even in like, Steven, what you did with Worth It, like, is the predecessor is Feast Mode, which did well but not as well. And so you see all these, before Worth It came out as a fully formed show, it was informed by all these little pieces of content, and that's like the hard work of data and an artist meeting and trying to form something out of that that is better informed than just like taking a shot in the dark. Also, the nice thing is like, we put stuff up on the internet, and if it doesn't do well, it just disappears onto the internet. Like, I remember our boss, Zay, like the shit that no one watched. No one's like bringing it up. Zay one time, who's the president of BuzzFeed Motion Pictures, was just like, it doesn't matter. Like, it'll be gone and no one will remember it. So just as soon as you put it out, you have to keep moving on to the next thing, and the cycle of iteration has to keep going. And when you have a hit, that's when you keep following it.
Does that allow you guys to take risks, knowing that? And having sort of that, knowing that, you can try to do these different things, that there's not that pressure?
Yeah, I would say so. I mean, the stakes aren't as high when you're making a certain, like 2 videos a week or a video a week, because it's like, all right, well, that one didn't work. Move on to next week. That's kind of like that's the worst thing that's going to happen. So I guess inherently every video is a risk in that aspect. I don't know. What do you guys think?
I think it really, like when you have like a faster production schedule, like it allows you to just be like, more comfortable knowing that sometimes things might not do very well, you know? I think I tend to get nervous if something bombs just because I'm always like, I feel like maybe it's just like the image of my mom like looking at my spelling test and like I fucked something up. You know, you don't want to mess anything up. But I think generally what's nice is like everybody has had like a big hit and a big bomb. Like by the time you've been working at BuzzFeed for a while, you'll have made something that's like been really good, and then you'll also probably have made something that's like completely tanked and like everybody was mad at you or said you had like a big head, and you kind of just have to like, it's sort of like getting like a little like scar that you're just like, yep, all right, it's a rite of passage. Something didn't work, and yeah, I'm just gonna keep on to the next one.
What was your biggest bomb? Do you know?
Just so many.
I know mine.
So many. What's your biggest bomb?
My biggest bomb was the whiskey tolerance taste test. It was
I've never
what
seen
whiskey,
that.
Yeah, exactly. No one did. No one saw it.
Eugene, what was your biggest? Because Eugene has also made the biggest videos BuzzFeed's ever made. Steven's coming for him, but Eugene by like 50 million has beaten us. So what was your biggest bomb? Justin Timberlake.
Shut up.
JT.
I didn't mean it that way. Just as a dig towards the other Try Guys. I guess for bomb's sake, okay, so here's a good example that ties this all together. I did a video, one of my first ones, and a lot of the style videos I do that have like a larger, I guess, production budget in terms of like the talent I bring in. I did a video my first year called Gen X versus Gen Y, which was sort of this like exploration of pop culture between the two groups. So for example, music, Gen X knows like Guns N' Roses, Gen Y listened to Britney Spears, but they both have some sort of affinity towards Madonna in the middle, and there was like looking at this in between. But I did this crazy Venn diagram with models dressed up as like performers, and it was like the best music video. It was like very just like David LaChapelle, and the audience was so overtaken by information, and I had like words constantly popping up on screen. Visually, really cool. For a viral video, they want to read every single thing that pops up, because it's just the way they ingest media. They think everything is information that they're supposed to read, and they think every visual is supposed to mean something. So that didn't do as well in terms of the response, because they say like, who the fuck edited this? I can't read every single thing.
You know what? That's so interesting, because I remember that video coming out, and you can see how all of that is like the predecessor to your really big style videos. But it was like you kind of needed to have that to get that.
Yeah, it
instant
definitely
feedback of
informed
everyone
me
being like,
about what I need to do. So I simplified, but try to like speak more through like the visuals in terms of what it's saying. So Women's Ideal Body Types
how many
has a similar
videos
style.
came before, in
Probably
between
like
those then?
2 before the Women's Ideal Body Types. It was that and the Japanese street fashion video I did, which I love that video.
Oh, that
video is
great. That's
pretty
really
dope.
cool
It's a
video.
dope
But
video.
I was informed by what the audience was saying in terms of I need to like sit more with the information and maybe simplify what the visuals were. So the simplest I could get was presenting like 11 different female body types throughout history since ancient Egypt, and they're
Just on a
essentially
white
modeling on a pedestal on a white cyc with just descriptive words, and that one has like, I guess, over 50 million now on YouTube.
Yeah,
But
that's not a lot.
I think that was all. It wasn't just me being like, oh, here I am, a creative genius making this. I had quite a few failures before then. And then very recently, I had my comeuppance with a video called Generations Throughout History, which stylistically is very left field. It was like Wong Kar-wai inspired. I kept saying like, I'm going to go so Christopher Nolan on this. And but every fact is on there for a good 20 seconds. I'm just like, you are going to get to see this fact. It's a 10-minute video, so they have to read it. But that was all informed by failure. Nothing came from a sense of auteurship where I thought it was just going to be genius coming out. I mean, you hope, but even like bigger videos like I work on all are subject to the opinions and the ruthlessness that can be online comments. But it's good. It's healthy.
I feel like that could actually be BuzzFeed's tagline: BuzzFeed informed by failure. Mega viral hits.
Informed by
failure.
failing pile of garbage.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I didn't get informed by anything from the whiskey tolerance taste test. I'll say that. I was lucky that
You
my
didn't do
big,
another one, did
Wait,
you?
was
I
that
did
testing
not.
Asian
See?
Glow? Was that the Asian Glow one?
No, Asian Glow did okay. I'm fortunate that my biggest bomb was also a video that I felt like deserved to be a bomb. Like, it would be different if, like, I was really in love with this video and then just, it petered out once when it went online. That would be devastating. But fortunately, when I put it up, I was like, this video is pretty terrible. And it was. So don't watch it.
So let's talk a little bit about representation. It's been a hot topic forever because it's like representation of Asian Americans in pop culture, particularly sort of Hollywood and film and TV shows, since the very get-go has been an issue. And we hear a lot about it most recently with the different films, but rarely do, at least for me, I get frustrated because we really talk about the solutions. So as Asian Americans, as producers that are both in front and behind the camera, what do you guys think are the ways to tackle that? Like, what are the steps that you guys take when you think about these specific issues?
I heard a quote once from Ava DuVernay where she was saying that the biggest thing that she tries to do is address the privilege of protagonism, meaning that the real privilege for all these like white characters or pretty people or blonde people is that they get to be the protagonist and they get to be the main character of the story. So at least in terms of what I do, I don't try and make an Asian character or a gay character I tried to make a character who is at the forefront of their own story, and who has that privilege of protagonism, because I think, you know, I wrote my whole senior thesis on Glee and like what I called the rainbow effect, in that it doesn't help when the characters are just there to be color, because a lot of times they're transparent and there's no depth to them. And so I think a lot of the problem with representation now is that we think, oh, as long as there are characters who exist who are different people of color, it's fine. Like even the most recent show, like viral hit 13 Reasons Why, most of the cast are people of color actually, but none of the main cast are, and you still don't have that privilege of being the protagonist. And I think that's what really drives people forward or back, because it makes you feel lesser when you don't see anyone who looks like you being the main character. And so you feel, even in your own life, like you're a side character. And so everything that I try and do is just honestly like existing and saying that I deserve to be the main character. And that seems to have been like the most helpful thing to an audience. Like those are the comments I get the most, of just like, hey, you look like me. That's really cool, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, there's so much to like unbox here.
Yeah, there's a lot to unpack.
It's interesting because when you talk about active solutions, we live in a day and age where the internet has given us, and especially the Asian American community, this wonderful platform where many, I guess, like self-professed social justice warriors can sort of like activate this like very riled up, angry audience that really wants to circulate a lot of discussion about representation. And that really works well on one end of the coin. On the other, we're wondering like who actually is in charge of these decisions? Where does this come from the top down?
100%.
How do we play into this conversation as people who are highly visible, or even just as a Asian American person who has some sort of online footprint, which is everyone out here? So my advice has always been, because Ashley's more currently like in the scripted realm online, like being the main character is really important. As someone unscripted, I've always been very cognizant of both my Asianness and my non-Asianness, because I feel like however much I'm on screen, people are gonna like gather one or the other, they're gonna find a mix. And I've always aimed to like get into this wonderful, like, not only the gray area, but really punch hard into both of those ends. The one thing I always say is a big solve that BuzzFeed helps with in a lot of viral media is that you don't just get me in one video and have to always reference that one video like a film where you saw that Asian guy for the rest of your life. You see me like 10 times in a month, and I can be many different things within that scope. And we just have to be at a place where we can understand the value of both our Asianness and our Americanness. And you come to find that it's like important to make sure that you don't like erase any of either. And I think that's what we start getting to an issue with, where we like highly define like this is what Asian is and this is what Hollywood is trying to cover. And we need to like get to a point where we are comfortable trying to reach the people who are making these decisions and like educating them on what they should understand is important to us. And it's hard because, you know, already we're fighting against characters generally that are already so Asian and they're played by non-Asians, but if we have an Asian, then it's just another Asian character playing an Asian character. I don't know, it's very complex to me. I'm like, why can't there just be like someone else who's hanging out who's like a Tony Stark type who's Asian? So there's there's a lot of issues that are kind of like embroiled already in that DNA. And I think the most we can do, and the most I think people can do in their daily lives, is create a space for them where they define their own characteristics. And I find a lot of times, even with old friends of mine, that they've found a voice online, but they don't even enact that in real life. Like they're afraid to be that angry and that loud or that like self-possessed. And I'm always like, girl, you gotta just like, if someone's gonna make fun of like this, then you gotta fucking slap them with your, I was about to say a very bad word, but that's kind of the attitude I adopted, because the one thing I've found, at the very least, in the response to myself online is that people, regardless of what I say it with a certain amount of confidence, like I own this idea. Mm-hmm. And I think that is one place where Asians generally need to start kind of moving the needle towards, because I hate that we're always having to be reactionary. Like I hate that we're always mad about something done to us. And I want to do stuff to people, you know? I want to be well, not like that. You know what I mean? But that's kind of the place where I think people need to start seeing that we have some sort of authority, even in the smallest microcosm of it, which could just be discussions with your friends. It could be what you say on your Twitter, and it could be with what the videos that you, or the films that you put out there.
I think there's a big difference between reaction and response.
Exactly.
And we don't see the latter enough. And you bring up a good point. If you're not, and you spoke to it a little bit, if you're not a storyteller, a creator kind of thing, if you're just sort of in this audience right now thinking, I don't do any of that kind of stuff, how can people who aren't sort of directly involved be a part of the solution? And you, Eugene, you touched upon like just speaking up, simply speaking up kind of thing.
Yeah, I did a talk at USC like 2 nights ago with a lot of Asian American students, and there was this sense of, we still have this prevailing sense, I think, internally of, I hate using like an antiquated term, but like of duty and honor, and a lot of things are still referenced towards this very patriarchal system that's within our minds. I have to say, even when you first asked me why I joined BuzzFeed, I'd said my mother's voice was in the back of my head. She literally just texted me an hour ago, and I've still been thinking about it, about the clothes I wear. But it is something that I think we have to actively break out of in the smallest ways, and it's not necessarily disrespect. It's just a matter of you have to own your own journey and story. And I think that in more traditional cultures, a lot of times we find ourselves kind of doing things in a reference point to a higher, larger authority. And I think as young people, kind of being an owner of your own authority is it's just the best you can do in your own profession, in your own love life. Oh, in your own love life. Don't even get me started about Asians and romance. But it's important. You have to have that autonomy. And yeah, I think if the studios saw more of that instead of just what they think is just, oh, here's just the young, angry, quiet voices kind of coming up in one quell.
Young, angry, and quiet.
Yeah.
The Asian Revolution.
Yeah, but that's kind of, I think there's a lot of ways that people can just sort of personally understand that there's no reason why what we do is any more special or different than what you can do in your own life. Yeah.
I will add something that I don't know what the answer to your question is in terms of what can we do for just in our everyday life, but I will say that the culture at BuzzFeed has been very eye-opening for me when I first came in terms of teaching me how to do Asian representation. Because, I remember the first day I got there, somebody just threw me in a taste test, and it wasn't like, oh, the casting decisions was not like, okay, are you beautiful? Are you white? Are you, it was just like, you're a human being coming in this taste test. And then recently there was a video that was done where all of the people on set were Asian American, because it was a video that one of our producers, Kane, did that was Asian Americans recreate iconic magazine covers. And that was it was crazy, because it was the first time I had seen an entirely Asian American, not just cast crew, but the hairstylist knew how to do my hair because they were Asian. The makeup people knew how to do makeup for Asian people. And it was the first time I realized this is what white people feel like. White people, I grew up in the Midwest, and I could never find a good hairstylist because they just didn't know how to, other reasons too, but they didn't know how to do my coarser, thicker Asian hair. And there's kind of this culture where I really appreciate where, I mean, we also edit all of our own content as well, so we can kind of put in our identity, whereas I've seen, and I've been wrestling with this a lot recently, where we have now editors who help us with things, and they're not doing it on purpose, but they're cutting out jokes that are about our Asian identity that are really funny and really great and that represent us well, but they just don't get it. So I think there's like this culture that's great where that has been established at BuzzFeed that I'm really appreciative of, grateful for having Asian Americans in the process of everything, like hair cutting and makeup and doing editing and producing and DPing, and there's so many decisions that are made day to day that need to be made by Asian people.
Maybe that's part of the solution inherently right there. I mean, if there's not an opening for Asians or even people of color to be visible in front of the camera or behind the camera, then make your own opening. And I think that's what BuzzFeed has given us, but also that's what the internet has given us. You are able to create your own opening. It's your story. There's no barriers of entry like there would be in Hollywood. You could put yourselves in control and control what the content you make. And I guess the solution is just, if you're a person of color or an Asian American that's wondering how you break in, create. Don't think about what you could do. Just start creating, start experimenting, and the internet has given you that ability, so just create.
I want to talk a little bit about comedy. I don't know if you guys saw last night the White House Correspondents' dinner, but it was headlined by Hassan Minhaj, and it was fucking incredible. I mean, he just killed it, using sort of laughter as his weapon to really tackle some serious issues. In all of your work, you guys have comedy. I mean, I think it's a thread that goes throughout. How intentional is that, and what kind of impact do you think that using comedy as a part of the storytelling has for what you do? Anyone?
I mean, I think especially for whenever you're talking about like more difficult topics, or even if you just want to get people to absorb information that would be hard to communicate visually, a comedy is just like a way in. People want to laugh, people want to like joke and to feel like they have that connection with the storyteller. And also I feel like it makes it so that if you are talking about things that can be painful or heavy for people, or even scary like ghosts, you can make it so that the audience feels safe and comfortable with you simply if they can laugh with you. And I think like I made a video like last year where it was like, and Ryan actually came with me, where we went to a Japanese American, we went to Manzanar, which is one of the concentration camps during World War II. And in the video, like, it's really sad and really kind of a dark subject. And then at one point, we have a bit where I picked up what turned out to be a sewage pipe, and it was like, you know, like a 70-year-old pipe that had once had poop in it. And I thought it was like an artifact. And that moment in the video was just like the park ranger was literally like, "No, you guys, you're touching poop. Like, put that down." And like we that ended up making like the final edit of the video, just because we were sort of thinking like, oh, like we want to make a topic that is like, it's going to be sad and it's going to be hard to talk about, but at the same time, like when you have these moments of levity, it's like also like, oh yeah, like life isn't all dark and all tragedy, and it's like bring people in by just being like, I want to laugh at you because you just touched shit. And that was sort of like a moment that even just like now, like a year later, I'm like, oh yeah, like that, I'm glad I put that in there. Like I'm glad people know that the poop happened.
I think that's super interesting that you brought that up, because I'd never really thought about that. Like, a lot of what BuzzFeed does is comedic, but we all do such drastically different shows and different topics, but they all are very comedy-based. I think that the internet has allowed us to kind of skip a step in terms of normal Hollywood cycle. What usually happens for, like, you know, people who have been culturally ignored is the first way in is intense drama about a really sad subject. So for gay people, it's like, you're gay, and then all the movies that we see first is like people who are dying because they're gay, and they're sad, and the partner, they don't get what they want, and it's so fucking sad. Oh, it's just lesbians are so sad on TV, or dead. They're sad or dead. But same with Asians and any people who are trying to earn that place. And I think the typical Hollywood cycle is that way in first through like deep empathy. But the internet has kind of allowed us to bypass that by not having to go straight to serious drama, and we go to the step that usually takes 3 or 4 steps after that of just comedy and us being comedic people, because I think, you know, a lot of my friends who are part of the Black Lives Matter movement and who are Black women they feel that way too, where it's like all you ever see is sadness in the Black community because we're showing how much oppression there is, and they specifically on their Twitter feeds will put like Black joy moments of all the little things that you don't see. And so I do wonder why we all kind of went towards comedy, and I think most people know that like when you're into comedy, it's because there's usually a lot of pain at some part of the route, and like you've learned a way around that. But it is interesting that the internet allows us to do that, and I don't know exactly why, but you know, probably because we're partially gravitating towards BuzzFeed, which is a more comedic site. But I also think it's because, you know, there's pain there, and we get to skip that step of just having to do serious dramas about our life.
Yeah, I think we use the analogy of sort of viral media, or media in general is like a conversation, right? It's a constant conversation between the creators and filmmakers and then the audience. It's a little slower on the traditional side, doesn't mean it's less powerful, but on the viral landscape, the videos that hit well are kind of like those great like conversation starters, like it's like a peak and then everything kind of centers around it for a while. And I think why comedy just generally works better online is because when you have a great dramatic piece, it generally is more of a conversation stopper. Like it's just like, like here you go, like fucking take it. And I mean, Milton knows, if you knew me before BuzzFeed, I was not a funny person. I am a very serious, angry filmmaker, which I think there is a wonderful place for that. But it does open up a different type of conversation when you can make someone laugh and potentially make them uncomfortable in a different way, where they had to confront it through someone else laughing at something, as opposed to someone like standing in hushed reverence, which I think is also powerful, just a very different part of someone's brain.
When it's funny too, people share it. When it's
Yeah.
sad, sometimes I think you're right. You
You're
just
a little
reflect
more,
on it.
yeah, you're a
Not
little
like everyone
more
has
reticent
to
to
watch
share.
this.
And sharing is really huge for what we do. It's just like that share factor for videos and for what they say when they share it is really important. And I did not think I was funny before I joined BuzzFeed. I would not have thought that after a year I was there, people like would write Eugene, comedian. It's just very strange for me because I don't think I've ever walked into a set trying to make a joke. But apparently, just being dry and pointing out when someone's stupid is funny. Which is, I guess, when I walked back and I said, oh, everything my parents have ever said that's funny, it makes sense. I'm like the most Asian type of comedy you could be, right? I'm just like, that's stupid, shut up. And everyone's like, ha, 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 you're so funny. That's like every Try Guys episode. But yeah, I think comedy is interesting because a lot of times, because we don't get to write the comedy in a lot of scenarios, Asians are very easily put into the sort of joke category. And so it's very interesting that that doesn't even present itself when we get to be at the helm from square one.
Yeah, because in media, the joke is that you are Asian, whereas for us, the joke is whatever we're actually saying and not the fact that we're Asian.
Yeah. I think the presence of comedy is also maybe a side effect of just being a human. I mean, nobody is one thing all the time. Nobody is like always dramatic or angry or sad or funny. Humans are, you know, shades of gray. There's different things you feel at different times, and comedy may be one of them. So I think that's just a side effect of, you know, being a normal person.
We think we're funny. That's
I
what
mean-
we're saying. We think
That's
we're
the only reason I can watch Unsolved. It's like I like that kind of genre, but I could never watch it before because it was too serious and it would scare me. And so the fact that Unsolved is funny is the reason that I can watch that stuff.
Agreed. So
Well,
the
thank you,
theme,
actually.
You're welcome.
the theme of C3 this year is future forward, about looking ahead and sort of the vision that we want to create. I want to get predictions. In the next 10 years, what do you guys think is going to happen with visual storytelling, whether it's about format or platform or even the stories itself? Yeah, just general predictions. Next 10 years.
Oh, boy.
Let's start with Steven.
Thanks, Eugene.
You're welcome.
It's funny because people, when I hear future, I think like VR and like 360, and I don't see that happening. I do think it is digital media just becoming more and more of a force. We're seeing that now.
What does that mean, become more of a force?
So ESPN just laid off like 100 people because their ratings are down. People are unsubscribing from ESPN, from television, and it's a hard world out there for television right now. And I think it's just people, I mean, we've seen now information is instant, and it's whatever you want to see it, whenever you want to see it. And I think that is going to be amplified even more, especially when we get unlimited data for everybody one day. You know, it's going to probably happen. So for things like that, like with the instant feedback and the constant flow of stuff coming into our minds, I do think digital media is just going to be this massive powerhouse where there's just like so much content, and it may be even more divided than it is now, which is kind of scary. But so I think digital will be, I mean, is it bigger than television now? Not yet, but I think it's very close to being bigger. And we're kind of seeing that with Worth It, it's bigger than most shows on Food Network, even though you would think that Food Network is like, people always ask me, like, do you want Worth It to go on Food Network? And I say, no way. Like, it'll kill my show because, it won't kill it. It's still a great show. But it will reduce the viewership, and it will create less of a conversation, and people won't care about it as much because it'll be set to this date and time and whenever it premieres. So I think it's just going to be all about digital. Next up is Eugene.
Clap back.
Touche. I won't speak as much about the sort of business frontier of everything because digital is expanding in so many crazy ways. And even 3 years ago when I first started at BuzzFeed, no one thought, we predicted people would watch videos on their mobile phones. Remember when you used to see videos on your Facebook feeds and be like, fuck this, no. And now all you do is sit there and watch videos all goddamn day on your phone. It's interesting because it's things that you can't quite predict all the time. I come from, maybe because of my like strict filmmaking background, I am I just bleed for traditional film and TV. It's just kind of like, that's where my heart is. And I think everything I always learned here in the viral landscape is interesting because I think it's informing where that traditional media is heading. I wouldn't have said this 10 years ago, but if you look at something like Girls with Lena Dunham or Atlanta with Donald Glover, these are like now young creators with very diverse, very specific perspectives who are owning like pretty much a 360-degree angle creative perspective on their shows, which is something that like you started seeing popping back in the day with like, Mary Tyler Moore and like I Love Lucy and Sybil, and you get to, this dates me a lot, but you get to like maybe recently
95.
with Tina Fey and 30 Rock. It just is something that you just would not have expected to happen without, I think, the influence of what was happening online, which is that you start seeing that by the masses and the numbers start backing up the idea of young creators having multiple points of control over a specific creative product. And I think that the internet has allowed studios to see what that value is. Have they learned to like correctly harness it? Not quite yet, but I think that is where we're going creatively, where right now you see experimentation where you see viral stars kind of popping up on your streaming services or on traditional TV, and they still haven't quite gotten like what it is that makes what they do important. Because you can't just like, put lipstick on a pig. Now I'm very Southern, but you can't just like take something, dress it up as something else, and expect it to do well on a different platform. You have to take what the core of it that was important and move it over. And I think what that is autonomy over one's creative voice, especially from a diverse perspective. And I think that is what's going to be happening a lot more on the traditional platforms. And I think we at BuzzFeed, especially since we have a more active branch that's like heading exploration in that area, thanks Hieu, we're going to be seeing how those bridges are going to be made successfully. And it's going to be really exciting, hopefully, to see more and more pieces of like really mainstream Emmy, Oscar-nominated content. I mean, Moonlight is the best example of this, getting the recognition it normally wouldn't get even 5 to 10 years ago.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the biggest problem, kind of what Eugene was touching on moving forward, is you now have the internet is creating all these creators who have a real point of view and a real voice, but the problem will always be in legitimacy, and that the first thing everyone asks us, including Steven's example, is when are you going to move to TV and what do you want to do on TV? Because we have more views and more followers than anyone in like traditional TV, and we're not invited to those parties that they're at because there's a lack of legitimacy. But the problem is a lot of us don't want to necessarily be on TV as the end all. We would like to be there just to reach as many people in the audience as we can, but that's not the goal, and that used to be the goal. But I do think what you'll start to see in the next 5 to 10 years is people have to dip into the legitimate, like Issa Rae, who had Awkward Black Girl and a following. She has to have her show on HBO to be legitimate, and yet she's still the most excited about what's happening in the digital frontier because it still has the most gates open. So like, as an optimist, I am very confident the future is really bright. Eugene and I are very polar opposites in terms of optimism.
As an optimist.
As an optimist.
The pessimists
true.
don't say as a pessimist.
Yeah, because
Sorry.
they're pessimistic. I think the future is really bright, and I think, honestly, the voices that have been ignored for millennia are just, like, swelling in a force that, like, we no longer need anyone's permission. And so the tides are turning. I also think that things that are happening politically and right now are helping form a movement that we won't be able to reverse in a really good way. But we just have to kind of wait and see what happens. Or the Hunger Games will happen, and then I'll see you there, so...
Let's hope not. Yeah, I agree with Ashley. I think that hopefully in 10 years, there will be legitimacy to what's happening in the digital frontier. And I think with more and more people cutting the cable and actually moving to digital, I mean, you see Netflix making original content. Mm-hmm. Who could have ever thought that was going to happen like 10 years ago? And for instance, when I make Unsolved, I don't think of it as I'm making like a web show or a video. I think of it as making an actual show. I take it very seriously, and yeah, that's how I think of it, and I hope in 10 years there will be more things like that where we can make shows that people take seriously and view as an actual show, not just something that's on the internet.
I think in 10 years, Blockbuster is going to come back.
Probably as a Netflix show.
That's what I think.
Jen, was that the joke
That's a
that
great
didn't
prediction.
land in your stand-up? Because
Yeah,
that was great.
it.
That was
That
great.
was it.
I actually saw your stand-up. I thought it was very funny.
Thank you.
Dang, I'm going to watch it right now. Should
Let's
I just
move
play
on.
us out?
What
with
is the
stand-up?
next
I found
question,
it very
Hieu?
funny. 2014 Boston Comedy Chicks. Are robots going to be telling stories? I mean,
Yeah, probably.
Well, I mean, at least they're-
this is a great article in Vanity Fair that came out earlier this year that it's an interesting thing that's happening in China. China is sort of transcribing all these like very popular, let's just say it's like horror films. They're getting together like as many of the top horror films, transcribing it, and then letting the robot spit out its own script, and then they give that script to a human being to rewrite it. Is that a part of our future in terms of this sort of weird mesh between technology and sort of human artistry? Is that going to be happening?
I certainly hope not.
It's kind of what we're doing now, though.
Yeah,
Honestly,
it's kind of the same.
technology is informing us in a way that we would have never had access to. Like, BuzzFeed has mass amounts of data. And so, like, yes, that's the most extreme version of that, but we are doing things that, like, Mozart never did in terms, not in any terms of quality, but in terms of data. Like, the data that we have access to is kind of, a robot does feed us numbers and tell us where and how these things are moving, but you always need the human perspective to give it life and to give it art.
Well, most like Hollywood scripts go through like 13 screenwriters, so it's basically going
Probably
through a
would have
robot.
been better if they were robots.
At least the robots are Asian, right?
Really, in
I-
10 years, we're all going to be Chinese.
I think a little bit about like they've done a lot of like AI experiments, and what sort of scares me about that is how they're starting to realize how easy it is to teach AI to to sort of absorb human biases. And Microsoft released this like teenage girl like character, like artificial intelligent character, and within like 48 hours she was like a right-wing conspiracy theorist who like hated every ethnicity and herself and you and everybody in this room.
It was like tweeting out like
Yeah,
crazy
She was
stuff.
on
It was just, like,
4chan?
yeah, really, it was like really fast how quickly. And obviously that's like an extreme example because I think trolls got wind and quickly tried to infect. But I think like what sort of freaks me out about that, and which is hopefully why I hope the human element, as imperfect as we are, always stays a part of it, is just because I think we like have this tendency to sort of just like trust the machine always. But if it's a human, programming the machine, we can easily make that machine, as awful as we are. and then just give it that sheen of authority. You know what I mean? I mean, again, I believe I'm very susceptible to scary things, so maybe I'm just paranoid. But if robots end up telling machines, I don't think they're going to be much better than us. I think they might just be as bad as we are, but we think they're super dope.
Wow, this ended on such a different note than I thought it was going to.
Also
No,
got to
there's-
address the low-hanging fruit, Skynet. So
Yes.
we all know what happened there.
What?
Terminator.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah, no.
Yeah.
With that, we'd love to take some questions.
Question was, what kind of time frame do we follow on creating our content? It differs for all of our shows, but in general, it's just really, really fast, like light speed compared to anything in Hollywood. We can have a video shot and out within a day if we want to. Most things, I think, take about a week. Like, you'll be in pre-production for a couple days, production for a day of shooting, and then a couple days of editing. And then, and then we also do, all of our shows are now bigger too, so those are a bigger scale. Like, I shot the first season, unfortunately, Ashley, that was 17 days of production, but a couple of months for it to get out. But it kind of differs.
Yeah. Like simpler videos, like you can shoot pretty quickly, and especially if you're editing them yourself. But we do have, I know some shows, especially like with Worth It, or even like I have a show called Ladylike that takes a longer time. If we're going into a season, we might take like a month or two to shoot like 10 episodes, and then post-production will be actually pretty expedited, but that might take like another month.
I think it also depends on the content itself that it's creating. It's pretty unique to what the subject is. So if you use Try Guys as an example, we shot, filmed, edited that Kim K video in less than 12 hours and got it out on the next day. A cosplay exploration we did where we did an entire deep dive into the sort of cosplay community took 3 months. So it is sort of like flexible with what you do, but overall the thing we usually tell people is you should have the capabilities to get out a piece of content from pre to post within a week. Yeah.
Question. Yep.
Sorry. Hey guys. Thank you
Hey.
for the panel. Like, you guys touch upon so many things. Like, there's so many questions I have. But personally, cool because I'm part Asian, part Black. So I didn't know that you're part Cuban. So that's awesome.
Yeah.
I guess it's just a general question. BuzzFeed's created so many amazing videos. And I think someone touched upon this. Would BuzzFeed ever do like its own feature length or its own original content, like movie form, or like what would be like the next step for BuzzFeed in terms of content?
That's for Hieu, I think.
Yeah. What we've already, I just arrived at BuzzFeed about 2 months ago, especially to sort of think about our push into film and television. I think the way that we're thinking about this is, people are always asking me, what's a BuzzFeed film? What's a BuzzFeed TV kind of thing? And I always respond with looking at who we are and what we believe in, right? So to me, good storytelling is good storytelling, and there's a real emphasis at the company to create content with impact. And what that means is a bunch of different things. The traditional film and TV process is not something that quite aligns with how BuzzFeed does stuff, and particularly with regard to time frame. But I think that we're going to get there, and I think that if we are to look at things that have impact, we have to look at traditional film and TV. We have to look at it as an opportunity to do things not as the end-all be-all, as Ashley said, but as a way to stretch ourselves.
I have actually a few friends that work at BuzzFeed, and one of my friends was in your show, Ashley.
Oh, who's your friend?
Nicole Ziana.
Yes,
Yeah.
she was in my show.
Yeah.
She's my love interest.
Yeah, I watched it. It was really good.
Hey.
But yeah, so I, as an actor, was just kind of curious because I've asked her and a few of my friends. It seems like a lot of the people produce, write, and act at at BuzzFeed. So how do outside actors get in, or is there not a process for that?
We have so many jobs. Like, everyone here literally was an intern at one point. And
Okay.
so BuzzFeed kind of goes through the process of, because what we do is so different than traditional media, it is helpful to come in from the bottom up so you can learn the processes. But we have residencies for different writers. That's how Quinta came in, through a residency. We have internships. We have there's like 25 new interns every 4 months at BuzzFeed, and that they learn the whole entire filmmaking process. And then also, I think the hardest part, you know, as people who like now get a chance to hire people for us, is we have to get better as a community at making those resources known and making good actors and good people in the community known, because if you go to a comedy show at UCB, 99% of the guys are like white guys, and so I, as a person who now is in a position to hire people and hire actors, I'm trying to figure out how do we make better networks so that we can easily find people and actors who are diverse, who are different, who have a point of view, and who aren't in BuzzFeed yet. Because it's funny, when we started, BuzzFeed was a tiny, like, little startup. When I started, it was one building in New York with less than 200 people, and now it's a massive global company, and I kind of forget that sometimes. So I think there definitely are ways into BuzzFeed. Part of that is reaching out to us, and another part is us trying to figure out, you know, where we have job opportunities, and the other part is us as an organization trying to figure out the best way to find diverse voices.
Sorry, so just to clarify, you don't only have to be like doing all three things, right? You can. There are ways to just come in.
There are opportunities for writers, and I don't know if we've had just an acting fellowship yet. Most actors come in through people like Nicole.
Yeah,
who,
she just knew someone who knew someone who.
Audition,
I mean, I've been in a BuzzFeed video before through someone I knew too, but I just was wondering how to like get in touch again about it. So
yeah,
we do
tweet
have
at
a
us.
casting department too.
Yeah,
where you can submit actually, and that's kind of new. But we have like, I think it's casting at BuzzFeed.com. I can double check too, and we can post it. Like, but there is like a network now because we have like all of those people in the casting office who accept submissions, and then we just have like on file like people and their resumes and like even a reel. But yeah.
We do casting calls too, if I'm not
We
mistaken.
do casting calls,
So
But that
people
is an
could-
interesting resource that you can put yourself out there for us to know about even before we need someone for casting.
Yeah.
Good call, Jen.
My kids are huge fans of everything you guys do, but through one of them, they were telling me about Safi and how I guess she's left BuzzFeed, and it kind of made me wonder about, you know, what is the future of a company like BuzzFeed as you grow and you are so big? You know, one of the wonderful things about the internet and diverse voices is that, you know, we're seeing a democratization of media, and I'm just wondering, like, what is happening at an organization like BuzzFeed? Like, how are you guys thinking about that moving forward?
I think as sort of any growth, as an artist, as a filmmaker, as a storyteller, as you grow, you want to try to do different things as well. And for, you know, I only recently have come to BuzzFeed, but sort of my thoughts on from the outside and just recently joining the company is that that's okay. I mean, BuzzFeed supports that. It's a culture of experimentation. It's a culture of growth. Nobody sort of, you know, there is not a formal green light process in terms of, you know, as a lot of people mentioned here, we're just given sort of broad, you know, broad strokes of sort of what we want to try to accomplish. We experiment with that, and when, you know, certain times as you grow as an artist, you just want to try and do different things, and I think that's okay.
Yeah, I hope BuzzFeed becomes something like SNL. Like, we're still such a new company in terms of being in the spotlight, but for me, I think what's going to happen is sometimes I'll see movies or actors where I'm like, how do these giant people know each other in the industry? And you find out they all went to Groundlings together, they were at, you know, UCB or some kind of improv space, or they went to college together. Like in Moonlight, half of the people who worked on that went to college with Barry Jenkins. And I hope that BuzzFeed, you know, I hope there's enough space for everyone to grow and leave amicably. And, you know, hopefully in 10 years we're all collaborating with each other and everyone's wondering how the hell we know each other, and then they're like, oh, BuzzFeed, they were all at BuzzFeed at the same time. So I do think that, you know, BuzzFeed is one option of working, and for some people it doesn't work. And if they want to be an independent creator, more on the YouTube side where they're just like a single personality. But a lot of the stuff we do requires crews, big crews, and mass resources. And so I think we've chosen to stay here for those resources. So I hope that there's enough space for all of that. But like personally, I would love for BuzzFeed to be kind of like an SNL roster where it's like, oh, they all were on that season together, and then they, you know, went on to do different things.
Yeah.
Hi, I just wanted to touch back on her question back about minority-centric films like Moonlight or Gook, is the digital space, do you think that the next minority-centric film might be created in the digital space, or would that, for now at least, have to still be relying on traditional independent filmmaking? Or you spoke that you guys were thinking of heading that way, but the time frame for that might be longer down the line.
Well, I think, here's the thing about representation. There's just not enough, right? So you just, in terms of, when I think of a film like, an amazing film like Moonlight, I think to myself, that doesn't represent the Black experience. That represents a single, particular, specific human experience, right? And as Asian Americans, we just haven't had enough, right? So everything that comes out is all about, it's the rep sweats thing. The burden is on that piece of content, whether it's film, whether it's a TV show, whether it's a digital series kind of thing. So the game is to do more, right? And I don't think, I would have to agree, like, just because it's film doesn't mean it's the end all be all. That's not like, that's the legitimate place that we need to be in. The place that I think that we need to be in is creating more. So with regard to film, yeah, absolutely. There's a real market opportunity. You see a film like Get Out, why, knowing that horror films have been so popular, that film was made for $4.5 million, knowing that something as popular as genre as horror, how come all these years there's never been a Black male lead as the hero, right? So not only does it make sense in terms of sort of representation, but I think it makes sense in terms of a market opportunity, right? To cast a range of ethnicity and a range of people and a range of life experiences into films as the protagonists of their stories. Yeah.
So, in traditional media, film and such, it's in the past 10, 15 years, whatever, has become such a huge consideration for maximizing viewership internationally. And then that affects elements, puts pressure creatively on creating content, et cetera. Is there anything like that affecting content created for online?
Our audience is actually super and hyper international because we're on their internet. Much like the way Netflix is doing content where it lets the audience decide whether or how they want to watch it. 190 continents get, or 190 countries get each Netflix show. And, I think an executive before would have decided that this Brazilian show isn't going to do well in the United States, but Netflix just puts it up for everyone to watch, and we do the same thing. And I think I was blown away. Like, my largest audience, some of it is in Germany, some of it is in Malaysia, some is in Indonesia, some is in Ghana. Like, I would have never ever thought that BuzzFeed would reach those places, but because we're completely agnostic to audience, like, we let people consume us in the way they want to, and the things they relate to us about are not always the things we might assume. So, like, you might think that, oh, this is a very strictly American, Asian point of view, but the audiences latch on to kind of whatever they want, and because we're on platforms that are global and worldwide, like Facebook and Twitter and Instagram and YouTube, our audience is all over the world, and probably only 70% of it is from the United States, which I would have assumed that it was 99%. Mm-hmm.
I would like to see more data on that, though. We haven't really specifically said, like, these types of videos do super well in South Korea versus, the data is there, we just haven't really asked for it. But you would be surprised because, comedy is really hard to translate to different countries. Try Guys did a K-pop exploration, which we were, like, convinced would do well in South Korea, but it didn't do as well as, say, other Try Guys videos. But South Korea, like, was obsessed with, like, a taste test I did where they tried durian, so you'd be interested. It is interesting to see. We do reach them, but, like, in terms of, like, at what magnitude does it impact other countries, we could definitely dip into that more specifically. We have the power to, which is very cool. Yeah.
The amazing thing is that we do know that kind of stuff. It's similar to sort of Netflix. Like, we don't have to guess anymore. With the sort of independent film market, it was controlled by foreign sales. Like, what territories are getting what, how much, and a lot of that was not necessarily out of raw data. That was actually out of the sales people, just like intuition of what their market was doing. Now we actually know. We don't have to guess. It doesn't have to be, there's no bias in it. If people love Adam Sandler films, people love Adam Sandler films, and Netflix is going to do an 8-picture deal. That to me is the exciting world that we're in.
Hi. I kind of have a more fun question for you guys. I aspire to be able to have a job where I can work with awesome people that I like, create good content and, pretty much day drink and have food tests, which is awesome. But I'm just kind of curious, what were your aspirations before BuzzFeed? Did you guys have the typical Asian parents who forced you to go into medicine? Because I did.
Let's start with Stephen Lim.
It's funny. When I went to BuzzFeed, I'm from Ohio, and I actually went to BuzzFeed thinking, all right, I'm gonna come here, steal all the ways that they do things, and go home and create an empire for myself.
Damn, savage.
I know, right? And then I met Jen, who is this lovely lady here, and it was like, oh my God, like there's some awesome people who I get to work with and like be friends with, and so I had aspirations otherwise, but I love the people I work with, and that's just what keeps me going.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think I had like traditional. I'm also mixed, but either way, like my parents were very much like, do what you want. You're the youngest, whatever. I think they were really like they were just really ready to be done. I think so. They were just like, do what you want to do, just get out of here. And so I always wanted to work in media and film anyway. I actually like went to film school when I was in college, so that was like a big part of it. But I think for me it was like I wanted to like write, and I also wanted to produce, and I like to edit. So it's just sort of like BuzzFeed made sense just from like a production standpoint and from like a creative standpoint. Web is like really cool because there are so many. It's like you can make things for less money, and you also can have a bigger say in the production side of things. I think when I was like a senior in college was when Broad City got picked up, and it was started as a web series, but it became like a Comedy Central show. So I feel like the past like 5 or 6 years has really been when web has sort of been like profitable for people, and also like there have been a lot of companies like BuzzFeed that are sort of creating jobs that didn't exist 10 years ago. So I always wanted to work in media, and I don't think I knew it would be BuzzFeed because BuzzFeed didn't exist in the way it does now when I first started like making stuff, but.
Did you think you were going to be in front of camera? Because it's interesting, the 3 things you listed was like not in front of camera.
Oh, no, yeah, I didn't expect to be in front of the camera at all. I was just like, whatever. No, but that's sort of like, it sort of happens naturally if you work here. Just sort of like people will be like, hey, will you comment on this thing, or will you act in this thing for me? And then people end up finding things that they're really good at, or just that they end up thinking is really fun that they never expected to, which is really cool.
Yeah, growing up, my parents were always very supportive of what I wanted to do, and from a young age, I knew I wanted to direct. I wanted to be the next Steven Spielberg, so to speak. And then I applied to BuzzFeed because it was a place where you could direct and create your own content, and that's why I went there. But then I found out and I got kind of introduced into the BuzzFeed experience where you do direct, but you are also in front of the camera, and you host, and you act, and you just do all facets of the production, and I fell in love with just that overall experience. And like Ashley was saying, I didn't know I was going to be in front of the camera. It was just something to do because it was convenient. I knew what I wanted in the video, so I could direct myself and the people around me while being in it, and I kind of just fell in love with that, and yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting because I think I'm the only person who didn't know that I was going to do media. All my family are doctors and lawyers and other things that Asians are good at, like concert violinists. Me and my sibling, I make YouTube videos, and my sibling works at Cartoon Network, so somehow we like really fucked up on the plans. But it is interesting because I was always drawn to media, but I literally saw no way in. My parents didn't have anyone who could help me. They didn't know anyone, and it wasn't they were telling me not to do it. They just didn't know how to help. So they kind of just let me make my own path, and that's kind of how I got into it. But I went to school to be a diplomat. I lived in South Korea as an English teacher and was about to take the test to be a diplomat. I also was going to apply to the CIA at one point, but then I found out that if you apply, you can't tell people that you're going to be in the CIA, and I was like, well, that's bullshit. The only cool thing about being in the CIA is that you tell people you are. I was like, Miss Congeniality really screwed me up on the perceptions of what government service was. So, yeah, no, I make YouTube videos for the
Cool
government.
story.
Yeah.
Okay, so I always kind of say in these interviews that, I was a very serious filmmaker, and I went to USC, and I never dreamed of being sort of a figure in front of camera. I do have to say, if I take that back to my childhood, I was active in theater, choir, dance, fine art. I was like choreographing every school play. I essentially was 9 to like 10 p.m. on stage. And I don't talk about that often because once I knew I was going to be in art, a teacher told me, oh, you know, filmmaking is the best way to have your hands in all the pots that you've had them in. And I also realized, being in Central Texas and not having access to that, there aren't any Asians on screen. I could never be a performer, even though I actually, fun fact, was accepted to NYU Tisch for performance. But I went with USC Film because I was like, well, who the fuck is ever going to see? I'm going to have like one flower drum song a year, and that's it. Maybe a Miss Saigon background character, but I'm not even the right race. But you know, it was just like not something I even saw that was possible. So I was always from a perspective of I'm going to make a huge revolutionary amount of change as like an Asian auteur type, right? That was like my goal from the beginning. And I thought that while I did develop like a really sound amount of craft, I was very much like the throw the sledgehammers at the wall type, which I think is fantastic. I love films like that. But that was my angle. I was like, I'm gonna be like up in your face, balls out, just like ready to go. And what's interesting is when I stumbled upon BuzzFeed, this sort of shift into this full circle of like seeing the value of the path that was like less travel was just being myself in camera was interesting because I just was going one way where I said the way to get change for Asian Americans is to be highly unrelatable, to make myself so specifically ethnic, and to do something so edgy that white men would have to look at it and say, that is so interesting, right? Like that was my goal. I didn't realize my audience when I went to USC, well, I should have known I went to USC, was for older white men to say like, this is interesting, let me give you money to make more interesting dark stuff. Like that was my angle because I was really good at it. But when I went to BuzzFeed and like went on camera one day and tried a hamburger and I was just like, oh, this is fucking gross. Then the comments were like, I like this Asian guy. He's like, blah, blah, blah. And I started my social media right when I joined BuzzFeed. I was anti-social media before that, did not have Instagram, did not have Twitter, did not want to deal with that shit, still don't do Snapchat, don't understand it. But it all was very organic where I realized now I'm reaching the masses in a different way who relate to me. So in a weird way, I'm like this covert, like secret, stealthy, like I'm ready to slap them with that impact, but I'm trying to like lure them in with honey first, you know? Now I'm like saying a lot of weird shit. But but it's interesting because I realized that BuzzFeed is the most powerful tool I've ever had in my whole artistic career is relatability. And that is so bizarre that I have white kids watching a video of me and my mom impersonating each other and they say, that is so much like me and my mom. And I'm like, this is the most Korean woman you could ever see. And they're like, oh my God, Eugene's mom's so much like my mom. I'm so much like Eugene. It's crazy because I am considering myself a more dark side type artist or producer. But
when
in
I
the
first
end,
met
it's-
Eugene,
yeah.
he would literally pin people in our little corner kitchen, and just like rage about being Asian all the time, to the point that I would avoid Eugene in the kitchen where I was like, I don't want to talk about being Korean right now. Like, it's so much. And then it's funny how much we've evolved because you do think you have to be so specific, but like the specificity is where the relatability comes from, but not from being angry. It's just from being who
I've
you
like
are.
channeled my anger into like likable darkness, right? So I think that you have to think about that actively,
Same.
and you kind of have to do that in your daily life, right? You can't always be like an angry ethnic person with everyone you're around, otherwise you're no fun to be with, right? So you just have to be the smart, kind of cutting Asian friend who will like just like jab at you if you say some bullshit. But other than that, you're chill to be with, and you can drink like anybody else.
I'm enjoying this exploration into the recesses of your mind, Eugene.
Oh, sorry about that. We went to a very dark place. But yeah, in the end, everyone should just be who they are, right? That's just kind of what it comes down to. And you can't limit yourself by saying, I can't be on screen or I can't be behind camera, because you never know where people are actually thirsting to see you.
All right.
All of you have any formal film training? Do you think that's important to get into the industry? Or is it just basically, if you just got the talent, you got the talent?
Do you have a kid that's going to film school?
No, I mean, I think you need, you can have it, and I think it can be a great tool. I also don't think it's 100% necessary. Like, some people, I mean, you, like, didn't go to film school. You were an engineering major and, like, became an engineer. So, like, it's, you know, like, I think it's very, like, clear that, like, there are people that have that background, and I think it can inform your work, and I think it can be a great advantage. But there are even people now at BuzzFeed, not at this panel, that, like, just came from other jobs, had other, like, studied other things in school, Like, I think it helps because you want to be able to, like, know how to edit or know how to work a camera and things like that, but those skills are not tied to film school or tied to a specific university. Like, you can be self-taught or you can learn from other people, and you can make amazing things without, like, that formal background.
I definitely think it doesn't hurt. I went to film school, and to my parents, it was worth it. It was worth paying the money for film school. But I think we're also in an age where, in the digital age, where people could just pick up a camera and learn on the fly, and I think that's given people liberty to do that without any formal training. But I do think it doesn't hurt.
Yeah, there's definitely gaps in my knowledge because I didn't go to film school and I didn't really, hold a camera in a formal way until I came to BuzzFeed. But most of that you can learn through books. Like there's YouTube videos about everything, and books that I've read about cinematography, all the things that I wouldn't have learned in film school. I do think sometimes I feel like it's to my advantage that I didn't go because I have a whole breadth of knowledge and topics that I can talk about that have nothing to do with film, whereas a lot of film school students, when they start, are too self-referential and they know the right way to do it, so they end up copying someone, whereas if you didn't go to school, you literally don't know the rules, and so you end up breaking all these confines of how things are supposed to be done because you don't know how they're supposed to be done. But then when you're editing a video and you have no fucking idea what you're doing, it's very frustrating.
Yeah, I think that the one stereotype that I dislike about digital content is this quantity versus quality idea. It is the easiest way to describe traditional versus digital, right? You're like, oh, you have a way more digital assets that are coming out that are just less quality. And I think that is also sort of a slight to younger generations, like kids these days. Everyone's just like, oh, they could watch Kylie Jenner's Snapchat and be entertained for like hours. But you'd be surprised to see that with the amount of information that they're consuming, they are very adept to recognizing quality. And so it's our job at a company like BuzzFeed to see where we can make that connect by bringing the quality up. Because as much as there's so many entrances into the viral universe by being like a vlogger or things like that, but that doesn't mean a seamless transition into traditional. And you've seen that fail many times with a lot of vlogger types because they don't have traditional acting training or they don't have any they don't understand how to work with the director. So it definitely doesn't hurt, even if you're going into digital, to have some sort of reference point or some sort of formal education if you have access to that. But at the same time, if you're just a struggling actor, just go at home and learn basic Adobe Suite, learn things that will help you be able to create things on your own. Because in the end, the thing that pops, it really in the end doesn't really matter where it came from or where you came from. It's just something that people respond to.
I will say, I work closely with Ryan because we're on the same team, and he's classic filmmaker, I'm classic binge YouTuber, and I think he has his advantages for going to film school, but I definitely have my advantages for not going to film school. And I think just knowing who you are and playing to your strengths is what has been important for me because BuzzFeed is a tech company first, right? Tech and media company, and I'm an engineer by trade, and I think that helps me. I was showing Ryan some numbers on Friday, and he was confused, and that's my advantage to him. So I think everybody has their own advantages, but
To be fair, though, I did help you light your first video.
Oh, this is a smackdown. Okay, parking lot is where we're going to continue this.
But you don't
Rumble.
know that.
And this is why we work well together.
Well, we just want to say thank you. Thank you to Visual Communications for having us, and thank you for your time. That's it.
Thank you.
Thank you.